It's May 14th, 2018, and it's time to review 5 of the most outrageous, infuriating, or just plain baffling things that have happened lately. It's your Facepalm 5. Let's count them down. Number 1, the poor, persecuted, intellectual dark web. I mean, it's getting to a point now where you can't even make a living playing footsie with fascists and racists without some SJW trying to make you seem like a bad person. Luckily, New York Times opinion editor Bari Weiss is here to defend the honor of wrongly maligned intellectuals and commentators who just want to be able to have important conversations without worrying about being politically correct. In other words, they're reactionary pricks who are sick and tired of people talking about what pricks they are because of all the prickish things they constantly say. Among those who receive sympathetic treatment from Weiss are Sam Harris, Dave Rubin, Ben Shapiro, and Joe Rogan. People who not only stretch the definition of intellectual to the point of incoherence, but also host popular and lucrative podcasts and YouTube shows. There's also Jordan Peterson, who receives a small fortune every month from Patreon donors who like it when he denigrates trans people in an aloof academic tone of voice, and Michael Shermer. Weiss notes that Shermer is a magazine publisher and famous science writer, and quotes him bragging about all the TV shows he's been on, but leaves out the fact that he's been repeatedly accused of sexual assault by multiple women. Probably just had to cut that to get the word count down, huh? She also quotes Eric Weinstein describing Shapiro as smart, highly informed, and often princely in difficult conversations, without informing her readers of Shapiro's history of racist remarks, particularly against Arabs. He infamously tweeted, "Israelis like to build. Arabs like to bomb crap and live in open sewage." Shapiro also once declared that the Pulitzer Prize and Tony Award-winning musical Hamilton had, quote, "no melody and no harmony while listening to it on the air." I realize that all things considered, this is probably one of the least offensive things Ben Shapiro has ever said, but come on! How can anyone take this smug, clueless twerp seriously? Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, the intellectual dark web tells you everything you need to know about them in the hilariously grandiose name they've claimed for themselves. Despite what it suggests, they're not intellectual, and they're not dark. And yes, I'm referring not only to their high level of media visibility, but also to the complexions of all but a few of their members. They're a pack of self-satisfied, thin-skinned bigots who resent having to face any social consequence whatsoever for broadcasting and profiting from their bigotry. But hey, their delusional persecution fantasy landed them a sympathetic write-up in the most influential newspaper in the entire world. And incongruity, I'm sure, will be lost on most of them. Number 2, Melania Trump launches tone-deaf, hypocritical anti-bullying initiative. The wife of that thing in the White House has apparently decided that she can't just keep sitting around doing nothing while she and her friends are quietly enriched by money funneled from her husband's inauguration fund. She's got to get out there and do something. The something she has chosen to do is called Be Best, an initiative supposedly aimed at improving the social, emotional, and physical health of children. Folks have had a laugh poking fun at the awkward grammar of the program's name, but what really disturbs me is the shameless hollowness of this whole thing. One of the 3 pillars of Be Best is social media. During the announcement, Mrs. Trump said, quote, "It is our responsibility as adults to educate and remind children that when they're using their voices, whether verbally or online, they must choose their words wisely and speak with respect and compassion." Her husband Donald Trump was in attendance when she said this. She advocated speaking with respect and compassion on social media in the presence of Donald Trump. And then when the speech was over, Trump got up and said that she was an inspiration to everyone. What? That's like someone giving a speech against cannibalism at Idi Amin's house. And then when the speech is over, Idi Amin jumps up and says, "Hey, awesome speech. That was great. And now, lunch is served." It's not only Donald Trump's status as the internet's most visible, prolific, and unapologetic cyberbully that reveals Mrs. Trump's Be Best initiative as a half-assed charade. The same day as the Be Best announcement, the Washington Post reported that President Trump was asking Congress to slash billions of dollars from the Children's Health Insurance Program. So advocating for the physical well-being of children doesn't include funding children's health care. Heck of a meal, Mrs. Ami. What's in this meatloaf, anyway? Number 3, the NRA picks the perfect president. Just when I was starting to think that Melania Trump, champion of online civility, was going to be the most absurdly paradoxical thing I told you about in this video, the National Rifle Association stood up, cleared its throat, and announced that Oliver North would be its next president. North is still probably most famous for his involvement in the Iran-Contra affair, during which he secretly sold weapons to the government of Iran, then used the proceeds to illegally fund right-wing rebels in Nicaragua. So at least he has relevant experience. North is jumping into his new job with both feet. He's already resigned from his position as a Fox News contributor, and you know what that means. Jack Keane, it's your time to shine, buddy. And last week, North gave an interview to the Washington Times where he accused the Parkland students who have advocated for increased gun control of engaging in civil terrorism against the NRA. North went on to say, quote, "This is the kind of thing that's never been seen against a civil rights organization in America. You go back to the terrible days of Jim Crow and those kinds of things. Even there, you didn't have this kind of thing. Members of civil rights organizations were murdered during Jim Crow, you asshole. Harry T. Moore, Medgar Evers, Herbert Lee, Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerner. I'm guessing these names don't ring a bell. And by the way, Ollie, just saying that the NRA is a civil rights organization doesn't make it so, no matter how many times you fucks keep saying it. David Duke tried the same trick 40 years ago with the KKK. It didn't work. Although I have to say, I'm not too surprised to find the NRA recycling marketing strategies from the Klan. In fact, it makes a perverse kind of sense, especially when you take into account how much overlap there is between the memberships. Number 4, it was white people call the cops on black people for no reason week. Week before last, employees at a Nordstrom rack in Brentwood, Missouri called the cops on 3 black teens they suspected of shoplifting. They weren't shoplifting, they were shopping for prom. Then, last week, a woman in Rialto, California called the cops when she suspected black folks of breaking into her neighbor's house. They weren't burglars, they were guests of her neighbor who had rented out the house on Airbnb. Meanwhile, in Oakland, a woman called the cops on 2 black men who were grilling in a park. Their alleged crime? Lighting the grill with charcoal in an area of the park that had been designated for non-charcoal grilling only. Thank God that upright citizen was there to enforce the rules. You know, without rules, we live in anarchy. But there's another story in this vein that I really want to focus on. It took place last week on the campus of Yale University. Graduate student Sarah Braasch, who is white, called campus police on fellow grad student Loladi Shanbola, who is black. Shanbola's crime was taking a nap in a common area in the Hall of Graduate Studies. Yale authorities later determined that it was not a matter for the police and admonished Braasch for calling the police. But this was not the first time Sarah Braasch had called Yale campus police to report the suspicious activity of a black person who was not acting suspiciously. According to Shanbola, a few months ago, Braasch reported another black fellow Yale student to campus police, accusing him of being an intruder in the dorm. The reason I think this particular story warrants special attention is that Sarah Braasch is not your stereotypical racist. Sarah Braasch is a lawyer who has spent much of her professional life working in support of women's rights and secularism. Those are 2 noble and necessary causes worth fighting for. Unfortunately, the way Braasch went about it often left a lot to be desired. Sarah Braasch has written that race and racism are social constructs that shouldn't be taken seriously. She also wrote a piece reflecting on a debate she participated in when she was in middle school. The debate was about slavery, and Braasch bragged that after being placed on the pro-slavery side, she won the debate by arguing that in a democracy, people who want to be slaves should have that right. She still seemed to consider that a strong argument as an adult, but oddly enough, as an adult, she has also strongly advocated in favor of laws banning women from wearing burqas, because gender desegregation was necessary, she said, to establishing egalitarian public spaces. So people should be allowed to own other people as long as the people want to be owned. But women shouldn't be allowed to wear burqas in public even if they want to. Oh, and black people should expect to have the cops called on them if they take a nap. Braasch's writing has been published by the blog Daylight Atheism, by the Freedom from Religion Foundation, by The Humanist. These are respected platforms within the atheist secular community. This woman is not a shitlord or a troll, or I don't know, maybe she is, but if so, she isn't just those things. She's an educated, experienced professional who's gotten her work featured in some pretty impressive places. But she also appears to be something else. A racist. Her words and her actions certainly suggest that. Her resume doesn't change that. She once wrote that she had looked within herself and determined that her support of burqa bans was not motivated by some hidden prejudice, but purely by her concern for public safety and security. And I'm sure she feels much the same way about her decision to call the cops when she saw a black woman napping in the common room. No prejudice, no racial bias, just an honest concern for the safety and security of her fellow students. Except for that one. By the way, the two pieces Sarah Braasch wrote for The Humanist have since been taken down. The reason? They were found to be inaccurate, racially offensive, and out of step with The Humanist's commitment to social justice. Don't worry, Sarah, if you haven't heard from Bari Weiss yet, I expect you will real soon. And now it's time for the segment devoted to some of the things Donald Trump has done recently to disgrace the presidency and embarrass and/or endanger the United States and the rest of the world. It's number 5, the further misadventures of Lord Dampnut. Please keep in mind, as always, the following is not a complete list. But, oh Jesus, there are so many this time. Okay. After questions that Robert Mueller might want to ask Trump during an interview were leaked to the media, Trump tweeted that the leaks were a disgrace, even though the leak most likely came from someone on Trump's team. Trump's former doctor, Harold Bornstein, told NBC News that people working for Trump had raided his office and taken medical files without authorization. Bornstein also confirmed that the glowing letter touting Trump's excellent health he released during the presidential primary campaign was actually written by Trump himself. Trump hired Rudy Giuliani for his legal team, and Giuliani immediately contradicted several key claims made by Trump about the Stormy Daniels affair, namely that Trump knew about Michael Cohen's hush money payment and reimbursed him for it. Trump tweeted a threat to revoke the press credentials of journalists who report negative stories about him. Trump nominated Gina Haspel to lead the CIA. Haspel was once the chief of a CIA black site where prisoners were tortured, and she helped to destroy evidence of CIA torture in 2005. Despite this, she told senators during her confirmation hearing that the worst part of the CIA's torture program was the controversy that surrounded it. And last week, Trump announced that the U.S. is pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal. Trump's reason? The deal was weak and allowed Iran to continue developing nuclear weapons. So Trump broke the agreement, which will allow Iran to continue developing nuclear weapons. Oh, and that bit about the deal being weak and allowing Iran to continue developing nukes, that's not true. Though I doubt anyone currently working at the White House knows or cares. That's 5. Speak out, act out, resist, look after each other. Hey folks, thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of this one. If you did, please like, share, subscribe, and also please consider helping me to make more videos like this one by supporting this channel through Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron of this channel for as little as $1 a month. But if you can go a little bit above and beyond that level, if you can afford it and you think I'm worth it, and you pledge at, say, $5 a month or higher, you can take advantage of some extra perks in the Patreon campaign, including a shout out at the end of the Facepalm 5, just like my newest $5 plus patron, Brandy Ray. Thank you ever so much, Brandy, for becoming a patron. Thanks to all of you who have been patrons for a while or who aren't patrons but continue to watch and like and share and subscribe and all of that other good stuff. I so appreciate all of your support, no matter what form it takes. And I'll see you next time.